Hey, Jeff Lerner here, and today we're talking about bootstrapping your business. We're gonna talk a little bit about actually what the term means. Like, we all use it all the time, but I suspect, like me, most people don't know what it means unless they go look it up, like I just did. And we're gonna talk more about the concept in business and starting up a business and the realities of doing so. So stay tuned. Okay, so we're here to talk about bootstrapping your business. First of all, a little bit of a history lesson. I guess I knew what a bootstrap was, like it's a strap on a boot, right? So I looked it up. I actually did a Google image search and I found images of boots with straps, not surprisingly. So apparently the term originates from back in the 19th century. There was a saying to pull yourself over a fence by your own bootstraps. It's kind of like my friend in high school who used to say, if you can deadlift your own body weight, how come you can't pick yourself up? And I'm like, well, because of gravity or physics or something. Same thing with bootstraps. You physically can't pull yourself over a fence by your own bootstraps. The original term meant something that's considered impossible, which is interesting because nowadays we talk about bootstrapping as like this, it's interesting how word meanings change. It's like this sort of noble, entrepreneurial, David versus Goliath kind of story of like, I'm the little engine that can. But like historically, bootstrapping actually means something that's impossible. Like the actual technical term is called a dynaton, A-D-Y-N-A-T-O-N. There's your like choice word for the day. A dynaton means something that's words that are literally impossible. But now we live in, I guess, the age of possibilities. So we're all bootstrapping. And as somebody who has actually bootstrapped a couple businesses, I guess you really truly only bootstrap your first business or your first successful business, because then after that you're able to, there's always some inertia or something you can benefit from what you did previously. But as somebody who really did bootstrap himself into business, I will attest, it is so hard that it literally might be impossible or might be almost considered like statistically impossible. In fact, if you look at the statistics on underfunded and unfunded startups, it's actually pretty bleak. But this is meant to be a positive video, so we're not going to dwell in the negative. I will say that if you're going to bootstrap, if you're going to start your thing and you're not going to go, bring in outside capital or bring in outside help, there are a couple things that you can do to make your life a lot easier. And I was actually really fortunate that even though I didn't know then what I know now, I kind of did this and it worked out pretty well. The first thing, and I'll say, if you're going to BS your business, right? God, I'm a dork. The first thing you need to do is you need to develop a high yield skill. Now, what do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. You hear all these romantic stories of people, bootstrapping or the School of Hard Knocks, and they're making it go. And they're like waiting tables, and they're like selling cars is cool. Like actually, I don't have any problem with that one. And certainly waiting tables can be good if you're at a fine dining restaurant and you can make $100 an hour in tips, or if you're bartending, that can be good. I had a buddy that was an entrepreneur that bartended while he was getting his company going, and he would go work, 4 or 5 nights a week, but he would make consistently $1,000 to $2,000 a week. Like, that's bootstrap territory. You can pull that off. But what I see that's tragic and that I'm here to speak plainly about, and even if it bums some people out, is this idea that like I'm gonna bootstrap my way into starting my business while I'm making like 10 or 12 bucks an hour or $14 an hour. Like, it's so hard. So what I suggest for those people is before you focus on launching your business, before you worry too much about doing your thing, figure out a high yield skill. Figure out something you can do in the market that can get you into a higher level of income relative to the amount of time that you're exchanging. For me, I was really fortunate. I was a piano player in my 20s. So even when I started getting into business, I had been able to kind of work my way into some, one in particular, really high-end booking agency in Houston where I'm from. And so I was able to play these private parties where I would make like $200, $250 an hour. Now, there were only a few of them a month, but still I was able to make my basic ends meet Once I went full bore into business, I was still able to generate like a living wage just working, I played a lot of gigs, but I was still probably only working maybe 20 hours a week. But because, the problem as a musician, if you play the right kind of music and you get in with the right people and you show up and you don't steal from the people who invite you into their homes to play and do all the crazy stuff that some musicians seem to do and wonder why they don't get hired more. If you actually do it right, you can get to where you consistently make $100 or more per hour as a professional musician. The hard thing about being a musician is there's just not that much work. Like, you're not going to do that for 40 hours a week. You're not going to make $4,000 a week, 40 hours times $100 an hour for most people as a professional musician. But if you're just looking to work 10, 12, 15 hours a week, you can actually make really good money. It's kind of like being a bartender or something in that sense. So that was my high yield skill, where I was able to get my bases covered working maybe 40 to 80 hours a month. And that actually gave me the time to be all bootstrappy and get my business going while I wasn't at least trading away all my time. If you're having to trade away 60, 70 hours a week just to make ends meet, you got to really look and say, do I actually have time to launch my thing? Or do I need to figure out how to increase the value of my time while I am still trading time for money to get to a place where I have a little more leverage and a little more stability to actually focus on my thing? This is like one of the hardest conversations that I have to have with a lot of people, because people, a lot of times, they have a vision or an idea for a business or a startup thing. They're in such a hurry. And I get it. But the reality is, if you haven't figured out a way to make, in terms of an hourly time for money trade, significantly above average of what most people do, it's going to be really hard to bootstrap a business. But wherever you are on that spectrum, if you've made the decision to bootstrap and you're going for it, awesome. More power to you. I'm a huge advocate for that. Like, small businesses create most of the jobs in this country. It's a great thing. But here's what I'm going to suggest. Keep, whatever you have to do to keep costs not low, at zero. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see with people that are starting businesses is an underappreciation for how much those little cumulative expenses will erode your progress over time. So the little $9 a month and $19 a month and $49 a month tools and things that you sign up for, people, they sound, and look, I'm a marketer, like, we sell that stuff all day. I mean, we know how to make it sound like it's nothing. The reduction to the ridiculous. Oh, it's only 12 cents a day or whatever. This stuff will absolutely cannibalize your progress if you allow even small amounts of monthly expenses to turn into this consistent burden. So keep your costs at zero for as long as possible. Use every free tool you can get your hands on, depending on what kind of business it is. Like, first of all, Google Docs. If you're not into Google Docs, even if you're paying for like Microsoft Office licenses for Excel and Word, you can do it all the same stuff in Google Docs. I have yet to find a mathematical function that I wanted to calculate that I needed Excel for that I couldn't also do in Google Sheets. Keep your costs at zero. Video hosting, people go pay for Wistia. Don't pay for Wistia, use YouTube. You can set videos to private. Use Vimeo. Vimeo has free video hosting up to beyond a certain point, and just whatever you can do. Be like obsessively fiscally responsible, I guess is the term, for as long as you can. For project management, use any.do. Trello has a free tool. Asana has a free tool. In fact, rather than try to remember a zillion free tools off the top of my head, I think what we're going to do is put a list together, and I'll put them below this video, like a bunch of free tools you can use to kind of bootstrap and not get on the hook for a bunch of recurring monthly charges. And then the final thing is this kind of goes with the same thing of like keeping costs at $0, is like, be wary. I always say, like, here's my little saying, I'll just write it down. Seek good counsel, but be wary of counsel, like CIL. Don't get too many people involved. Don't turn your business into like, decision making by process. Be the dictator for as long as you possibly can. And even when it comes to hiring people, hire really, really slowly. I remember when I was listening to the Tony Robbins podcast, and he was talking about the single biggest lesson that he's learned over running his organization. I think at the time it was like 35 years of running his organization. The single biggest lesson he'd learned, that he thought if he had learned it earlier, it would have dramatically accelerated the growth of his business, was to hire slow and fire fast. He said there are people that we brought in that we shouldn't have brought in, that slowed down the decision-making process, slowed down the execution process. We kept them around thinking they would change, thinking they would improve, wanting to give people a chance and be nice guys and let them prove themselves. And the bottom line is, every new person you bring into your organization, on day one, there's a bunch of liabilities. Just the increased friction and resistance of having two minds that have to agree and four hands that have to align. Like, things get harder every time you add a person, which means if there's not immediately so much benefit by the addition of that person that it more than makes up for the immediate liability, you probably shouldn't hire the person. Seek good counsel, like ask around, find mentors, talk to people. But when it comes to actually getting people involved hands-on in your business, it's okay to move slower and grow slower and be a little more sort of like hoarderish about the operations in your business. I know that a lot of consultants will talk about scale and delegation, and that stuff's fine, but not when you're bootstrapping, because when you start bringing people into your business that aren't the owner, what's in it for them? They want win-wins. They want equity. They want upside. They want it now. It's not their vision. It's your vision. They're not going to be as patient. They're not going to have as much grit. They're not going to work as hard for as little pay as you are. Just be really, really careful about getting other people involved in your business. All right. So those are my 3 tips on bootstrapping. Despite what the 19th century original meaning of the word is, bootstrapping is not impossible. I have done it, but it is hard. So hopefully these tips can help. All right. If you like stuff like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you click the alarm bell so that you get notified when I post new videos, and let me know in the comments below if you have any experience with bootstrapping or any thoughts on anything that I shared, okay? Thanks so much. I'll see you on the next video.